Hello, hello, and welcome to this live stream. Today, I am going to talk to you about why having information is not enough to thrive living abroad. And I'm really excited about this topic. It's something that I've been thinking about for a couple of weeks now, and I am glad I'm bringing this to you today. I would like to make sure that you can hear me. So if you can, let me know that you can and where you are joining from. I see a couple of comments already from one to Roi Soleil. Hi, how are you? Yes. He also says to settle in a new country, it's like landing an airplane. If you, there's the approach and there's the checklist. So, there's you have the checklist, but also see how things are feeling. So, yeah, I like that. Hi, Dion. Bonjour. All right, great. Hi, Gabriella. So glad you could join. So glad you can join. All right. So I am going to start off by sharing a little bit about myself. I am Patricia Brooks, and I moved from Richmond, Virginia to the south of France in 2018. And I did this even though I was not so sure it was possible for me to do this. And it felt so good to do it that I decided that I wanted to help other women like me, single women like me, to move abroad confidently and sustainably. And so now I help single women in my coaching program, but also married women and men in my one-on-one coaching to move through their fear and doubt so that they can finally start the next chapter of their lives living and thriving in the country they know they're supposed to be in. And so I'm so excited to be able to offer this. I'm so excited to have this as my career because before I was doing something that had served me well, but I was a little bit over. So that's a little bit about me. And today, as I said, we're going to discuss why having information is not enough for you to move abroad and thrive there. Okay. So I'm going to jump right in. And the first reason that having information is not enough for you to thrive abroad is it could cause you to slow down your progress in getting abroad, right? Slow down or stop your progress altogether. And let me tell you what I mean by that. A lot of times we feel like if I just need information, and once I have enough information, I will be able to act on that information, execute, and have the result that I want. And a lot of times we will go and get information, collect information, and one question leads to another, that leads to another. And so we're going down this rabbit hole of information that we might not ever really even need, or that maybe we don't need immediately. And so we're not doing the work that we need to do to take that next step forward so that we can keep the process moving. And we can then end up having analysis paralysis. All right, we can get the information and then it can be overwhelming. Oh, I got to do all of this. And so you kind of get stopped in your tracks. The other piece of that is that you might feel fear after you start to see some things that maybe you question your ability to be able to do or to make it through, right? So then that can cause you to stop altogether and then leave that dream on a shelf, so that maybe you have regrets that you never made that move. So that is reason number one, that having information is not enough to move abroad and thrive there. All right. Yes. All right. So let me know your thoughts on these as I go through them. If you have questions for me, please type them in the chat. I will answer them to the best of my ability. All right. The second reason that having information is not enough to move abroad and thrive there is because depending on where you get the information, it can be, and if you get attached to that information that you gain, it can cause you to be disappointed or frustrated if things are different, if you experience things differently. So, for example, if you are asking me a question about my visa process and I tell you, oh, it went really well and I only needed this and I got the visa in record time, and then you go to your office, your VFS office, to apply for a visa, and it's a different office from the one I went to, then you may have a different experience because maybe their process is slightly different. And if you are attached to how it went for me and things go slightly different, that can cause you a little bit of stress or frustration, as I say. And if it goes differently and you haven't built the skill of being resilient and the skill of being able to think outside the box or find creative solutions if there is a hiccup, then that is not a good place to be. And I think that resilience is a huge thing that is necessary if you're going to live abroad, because things, our things change, unexpected things come up. And if you have not created that sort of mindset where you can go with the flow or you can think outside the box, then it can be an uncomfortable experience. And to live a life in that way is not fun and can lead to you not thriving abroad. All right. So does any of this make sense to you? If so, give this video a thumbs up. And again, if you've got questions, be sure to type them in. All right. Now I need to consult my notes here for number 3. Oh, the other thing that I want to say about number 1, which was the analysis paralysis, has to do with the fact that I was a project manager in another life. And there are two schools of thought for project management. There's the waterfall approach, where you collect a lot of information and you have to go through, each phase sequentially, and it takes a long time to even get the project off the ground because you're collecting the information and you're crossing all your I's and crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's. And so it's a really long, protracted process. And then in my experience, this is what I practice most. In my experience, we'd start the project, we execute on it, and then there'd be a hiccup or two because, well, we had gathered the information, we made assumptions about that information, and then when we acted on that, our assumptions might have been faulty. And so then as we're executing, we have months later, or sometimes years later, we have to act on the fly to figure things out. And so all of that prior preparation, all that stress ahead of time really created some tension that was probably, an anxiety that was probably unnecessary. So there's the waterfall approach. And then there's the agile approach of project management, where it's more of a prototype based approach, where they build something, they test it out, they see what works, they see what doesn't, and then they go back to the drawing board, have sprints, and then they test it out. Now, you might not want to move abroad, testing something out. But I just share this to say that you don't necessarily need to have all of the answers up front before you move abroad, right? And so that's the analysis paralysis. This goes to number 1. I left that off and wanted to share that with you. So, but number 3, we're on to number 3 already. And that is that information does not necessarily give you your reason for wanting to move abroad, does not necessarily give you what it is that you expect to have or experience or be or become when you are living in a foreign country, right? And that is vital, right? Because you can gain information. You can say, oh, well, Patricia moved abroad and she became fluent in French, and that's what she did, and that's great. That's what she wanted to do. And then you can say, well, I want to move to France too. She looks so happy. And, she said that, this visa seemed to be pretty easy to get. And so I'm going to go down that path. And then you can, follow that lead, but then get here and kind of be at a loss for what's next because you hadn't dug down deep enough inside, getting information from internally that would allow you to pick the right place, to settle in, to know what your next steps are, to set up a plan of action so that you can thrive there, so you can really get there and do what it is that you will be most happy doing. And so I think that the information, as I say, is great, it's necessary, but also having information, internal information about your why and your vision for what your life will be like there. Because if you are looking to move abroad, there is a reason that you want to move abroad, and getting to the core of that reason, not the surface reason of, well, I like the culture or something like that, but something that is deeper and that speaks to your core values, the principles that guide you. That will take you so much further, because when it gets hard, you have that to lean on. When you get there, you will have set yourself up for success, because you are going to be living your dream and not somebody else's. Does that make sense? All right. So number 4, and this has to do with community. Having information, you can get all the information. You can have a smooth transition to logistically get your visas approved. You can get them, verified or validated. You can, get your bank account all set up. You can exchange your driver's license. You can do all of that stuff based on information that you gain. And then get to your new country and realize how isolating it is. And so knowing that you're going to need to build a community, and starting to build that community even before you land, is something that will help you to settle in, will help you to have a better transition. And one of the things that I did when I moved was I came on a couple of scouting trips, and I found organizations that were in the United States that were connected also in France. So Weight Watchers was one of them, but another one was Heartfulness Meditation Centers. There was one in Richmond and there was one in Perpignan. And so on my scouting trips, I went to those meetings and telegraphed, oh, I'm going to be moving here in a year and a half. And I just wanted to see what you were all about. And I made that initial contact so that when I arrived, they were expecting me and they were so glad to see me. And that kind of eased my way. But that wasn't based on information about the logistics. It was something that I did on my own that helped me to ease my way, right? And so that is another thing. When you move abroad, when I moved abroad, I'll speak for personal experience. I did not anticipate how hard it would be. I was driven to get here. I felt so compelled to get here. But when I got here, after that, those first 3 weeks, and I came down from that cloud 9 and thinking that, yeah, this was a great feat, Patricia, but now what? Are you so sure it was so smart to quit your job? Are you so sure it was so smart to move to a place where you knew no one? And that doubt started to creep in. And it was hard, because I knew how I wanted to experience France. I wanted to feel happy here. I didn't want to have this shadow, this cloud of a doubt hanging over me all of the time. And in those early days, I had to work through that. Now, fortunately, I'd been through coach training already, so I had a toolbox to help me. And so some of the things that I did were to do affirmations on a daily basis. And I did my meditation, my deep breathing. And I really put myself out there so that I wasn't sitting at home feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody here. And so that is key, is building a community and knowing that, the logistics will help you to get here. But once you're here, having community will help you move along and feel more connected. So that is number 4. And number 5, and if you have any thoughts on this, if you have ideas of what other reasons, having that information is not enough, I'd like to see them in the comments. And number 5 is cultural understanding. All right. So you can watch videos on cultural differences all day long. You can read books on cultural differences all day long. And then you're going to get to a new country and you will experience nuances to those cultural differences. You may not experience, the jolt of some of the cultural differences that you gain from watching those videos, and it can be a little bit surprising. And you can be completely caught off guard because, well, you hadn't read or watched a video about this particular cultural difference. So, for example, there were two things that were particularly jarring for me. Well, there are three, but I'll just talk about two. One was how I knew, as somebody who was introverted, that I would need to put myself out there. And so in the first weeks, I went to this site called On Va Sortir, OVS, which is kind of a French version of meetup.com. And I found things to do there. And one of the things I saw that piqued my interest was this thing called laughter yoga. Now, laughter yoga was not anything I knew anything about, but I knew I liked to laugh, and the write-up sounded interesting. So I got on the bus, found this obscure place to go and do this laughter yoga. And there were a group of 3 or 4 people before the session started who were just talking. And so I thought, Patricia, you can tend to be a wallflower. Go in, introduce yourself, and just do that. And so I did. I mustered the courage to do that. And I said, bonjour, je m'appelle Patricia. And they looked at me like I had 2 heads. And I didn't learn until 2 or 3 years later when I read in a book that, well, introducing or sharing your first name, in the French culture is not necessarily something that people do because they see your first name as a personal thing, right? And so, but that was really jarring because I had taken this big step and it was not met with what I would have expected in the United States, which was, oh, hi, and my name is, right? So that was one thing that was particularly jarring. But the other was, in situations where, you're expecting a warm smile or a friendly face, you don't necessarily get that because it's just smiling is not as ubiquitous as it is in the United States. And so sometimes that could feel a little bit cold or off-putting. And so those were a couple of things that I hadn't anticipated on the level of culture. And that, if you're getting information, you may get some information on cultural differences that will definitely help you, but on others you might not. And there's no amount of learning or, as I say, watching videos or reading books that will help you to tackle all of the cultural differences, nuances that you will experience once you are living abroad, right? So that is number 5. So those are 5 reasons that you need more than just information. You need more than just the logistics to make a move abroad and thrive there. Let me know which one of these makes the most sense to you in the comments. And I see a comment here from Dion, which I'll share. For me, I get overwhelmed with the vast amount of information out there, from visas, taxes, renting, and etc. Yes, and sometimes the information is conflicting. So, what do you do in in those situations? I know of a situation where a couple decided they were going to move to France, and they gathered all the information they thought they needed. They heard the conflicting information about one type of visa that somebody, 2 lawyers said, oh, you can absolutely work remote, in France on that visa. And then other people who said, oh, no, that is a non-working visa. You cannot work. And they heard what suited them. And so they got the visa, and they came over here and started to work. And then they consulted a tax accountant, a French tax accountant, who said, well, you're going to have to declare your French taxes here so that people, they can see that you are earning money. And so that could pose a problem. And so they had moved abroad based on this conflicting information. And so what can you do, right? What can you do with the amount of information, or if it's conflicting? The thing that I say to you is you need to check in with yourself and how you would feel if you take the piece of information that is the information that you want to hear, and you find out later on, once you have moved, that, well, maybe that's not exactly the case. And how will you respond to that? I talk about resilience in here, talk about thinking outside of the box. Being open is another quality of moving abroad and thriving there. So you have to check in with yourself and what you would be okay with, and then you need to make a decision on which path you're going to follow. That's my suggestion there. Overwhelming, I think, is definitely something that a lot of people struggle with, Dion, and I think that's another reason potentially to get information, but don't necessarily stockpile it, don't necessarily go down that rabbit hole. As I say, you get this piece of information and then you go down the rabbit hole and you say, oh, well, then now what about this and what about that? And then it can become overwhelming. So I think maybe that's the sixth reason, Dion, is, collecting too much information can be counter to your productivity in moving forward. Other thoughts on this topic? Any other questions, comments? Do you have thoughts on, any one of these that speak to you? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, we can definitely, we can call it a call. Dion says, yes, I agree. Yes. The other thing I want to share with you is how I help people, right? So there are a couple of paths that, number 5, what was number 5? Number 5 was the cultural understanding, right? So it was about how you can gather information about cultural differences, but no amount of gathering or collecting that information is going to set you up for what you will experience once you're here, right? So be open to the idea that, okay, some things are going to be a little bit different, maybe a little bit jarring, but I know that going in, and I know that I might not know all of the cultural differences or nuances that might be a little bit uncomfortable for me. All right. So, and I'm going to talk about the ways that I help people. So I offer my group coaching and mentoring program called the Carefree Expat Incubator Program. And that is for single women who are struggling to move their dream of moving abroad forward because they have doubt, they have uncertainty. They've never moved abroad before, and they aren't sure it's possible for them. So that this community, it's a community of group coaching twice a week. There are online lessons that help you to build the skills that I speak about here of knowing what's your why and becoming the kind of person who moves abroad confidently and sustainably, like, having that resilience and building the discipline perhaps to, learn a new language, those sorts of things. And then that third part of the lessons is all about the logistics. What do I need to close out in my old country? What do I need to set up in my new country? And then moving forward, getting on those calls, having the support of a like-minded community. All right. So that's one way. I also offer one-on-one coaching for people who may not qualify for that program. And that is set up, can be set up similarly as in terms of the 3 phases of the lessons, or it can be tailored to something that you are specifically struggling with. And then I do offer an information session. This is a paid information session for people who just say, yeah, I hear you, it takes more than information, but I still want to know your experiences because it will give me a different perspective or new insights. So those are the three ways that I help people. I see a question about the investment in the program. The program is by invitation only. So in order to know if it's a right fit for you, what I do is I have a complimentary discovery call where I, learn more about your move abroad, what you're struggling with, if I feel I can help. And if that's the case, then I share more details about the program, including the investment. So the group coaching program, the Carefree, I'm answering this question here. So what if you have a partner and you're not single? Can you still join the program to get support? So the Carefree Expat Incubator program is solely for single women. And it's set up that way just because that was my experience in moving abroad completely alone. I felt like there was this void that I wish I had a program like this to help me with that support. However, I do offer the one-on-one coaching if you are married and you want support in moving through, your concerns and thinking through some of the steps that you need to take so that you can finally make that move abroad. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. Other questions for me before we wrap up? Oh, let me put a link to the where you can schedule, and I'll put a link in the description as well. You can go to thecouragecatalyst.com /future expat. And this is the complimentary call. So if you're looking for one-on-one coaching or you're looking to join the Carefree Expat Incubator program, this is a session that you would have to see if working with me is a good fit. So you can go ahead and schedule that call with me now. And if you do have questions for me, you want to just really, pick my brain about my experience and the things that I came up against in getting a visa or in doing my driver's license exchange, you can schedule an information session. Once again, this is paid, and I will put that in the description too, and also on the banner. And this is the paid session. So, all right, the paid information session. And I look forward to, having those conversations with you so you can get more clarity and, move your dream of living abroad further, faster. All right. Let's see. Is there another comment here? You're welcome, Gabriella. All right. Other questions before we go? This was a quick one. For today. All right. If there are no other thoughts, no other questions, no other comments, I'm going to wrap it up. Going. Gone. I want to thank everybody who joined live and anybody who is watching the replay. I thoroughly enjoy these lives. So thank you for joining me. And I will see you again next time. There is one other thing. There's one other thing. Thursday at 6 p.m. French time. So it's 1 p.m. East Coast time. What is that? 11 a.m. Pacific time. I got to do the math in my fingers. I'm going to be live with Valerie Aston. Now, I did a live stream with her on my channel, and she is a woman who has a program called Start a Business in France. And I'm going to be talking about my freelance experience here in France and, what it has been like. So if you are interested in that, let me get you the link to that too, so that you can join that. I'll put this in the description so that you can, well, maybe I'll put it in the chat. Yeah. Hold on. Let me grab that for you. Let me grab that for you. And see if I can find it on the fly. Oh no. I came up, but she didn't. All right, do this. All right, bear with me, bear with me. I'm gonna have to put this in the, I can't put my hands on it right away. I'm gonna have to put this in the description, but do join me because it's going to be, where am I? So do join me because it's going to be really good. As I say, it's this Thursday, the 28th of March at 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to be interviewed by Valerie Aston, who has the company called Start a Business in France. I'm going to be talking about my entrepreneurial journey here in France. All right. So I'm going to put that in the description as soon as I log off here. So click on that and set a reminder. And I look forward to seeing you there too. All right. Is there any, I see a comment here. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Merci. Merci. And I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.